Jinping, the door is open. So what does he mean? He means you're always welcome. What I'm trying to say is a word has a graphic aspect to its personality, phonic aspect to its personality, grammatical aspect to its personality, collocational aspect to its personality, because certain words go together. They're friends, they're companions, and certain other words do not go in the company of certain other words, right? So that's why people say, oh, his English is very good because he knows to use the best words in the best order, or proper words in proper order. So graphic personality, phonic personality, grammatical personality, semantic personality, contextual personality, contextual personality, pragmatic personality. Now, pragmatics talks about implications and so on and so forth. Sometimes the words are positive, but the meanings are negative, and vice versa. That's what I mean when I say that words have pragmatic personality. You can go on. A word can also have an interpersonal aspect to its personality. That when I use a particular word to talk about Professor Khairnar, or when he uses a particular word to talk about me, that word may have certain connotations that are known to him and me only, that may not be known to other people, other hearers, right? So, pragmatic personality, interpersonal personality, cultural personality. The word cow has one meaning or message in our context, in our culture. It has another connotation in the context of the West. For them, a cow is to be eaten, beef is to be eaten. But for us, a cow is a holy animal, right? A cow is Kamadhenu, because we are an agrarian country, agricultural nation. The cow is a very important, very significant animal, in our culture. So, sociolinguistic aspect, interpersonal aspect, cultural aspect, contextual aspect, cotextual aspect, semantic aspect, phonic aspect, graphic aspect, grammatical aspect. You can go on and on. Now, when we pick up a foreign language, we need to be careful. Once when I was in Vietnam, I went to a stationery shop and I wanted to buy a scribbling pad, a writing pad, and a pencil. And I said to him, because the word for notebook in Vietnamese is the, right? I can't spell it here, but it's V followed by some sort of O, which has a diacritic on top. So I said to him, because Vietnamese is a tonal language like Chinese is, they have 6 tones. And when I say tones, I don't mean falling tone and rising tone and falling rising tone and rising falling tone. No, that's intonation. I'm talking about tones, right? So there are 6 tones in Japanese, 6 tones in Vietnamese, and 6 tones in Chinese language. So I wanted to say, I want to buy a notebook. But because my tone was wrong, I said something very shocking and humorous and embarrassing. I said, I wanted to say, Toi muon mua ve. Toi means I, muon means want, mua means buy, and ve means notebook. Toi muon mua ve. But I said, Toi muon mua ve, and the man burst into a laughter. I didn't know why he was laughing. I didn't know why he burst into laughter. And he said to me, he looked at me and he used some body language. He said, Mot means one. Hai means two. Ba means three. Bon means four. He asked me whether I wanted to buy one or two or three or four. And he was smiling and he was giggling. And then I realized that my tone was wrong and therefore the meaning was absolutely different. What was that I wanted to say? I wanted to say, I want to buy a notebook. So I should have said, Toi muon mua ve. But then I said, Toi muon mua ve. I want to buy a wife. The meaning of my utterance, because my tone was wrong, was that I wanted to buy a wife. And that was the reason why he burst into laughter. So when we learn a language, a foreign language, we need to learn, first we learn the basics. What are the basic structures? and what is the usually frequently used vocabulary that we need in order to be able to serve in different situations, work comfortably in different on different occasions, and so on and so forth. And then on that particular foundation, we need to build an edifice. And that edifice consists of nuances and beauty spots of the language. And then we realize that, oh, in English we have just one verb, W-E-A-R, but in Japanese we have 5 to 6 different verbs, depending on what you're wearing, where you are wearing, which part of the body you're wearing it on, and so on and so forth. So you begin to understand the nuances, the beauty spots, gradually, slowly. Now, the main question, okay? There is intrinsic motivation, there is extrinsic motivation, there is instrumental motivation, there is integrative motivation. And when we learn a foreign language, we need to be acquainted with or familiar with the different nuances, right? Different beauty spots of that language. And that those beauty spots could be the spelling, the pronunciation, the grammar, the semantics, the pragmatics, the sociolinguistics, and so on and so forth, right? Then, why do we learn a foreign language? What are the main reasons and what are the opportunities? For example, uh, let's say you want to go abroad and you want to study there, you want to go abroad to a particular country and you want to do some higher studies there. Maybe you want to do your PhD in English or some other subject, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese. So you want to go abroad for study purposes. And before you go abroad to that particular country, now you may go to do your PhD in English to Germany, not necessarily to the US and the UK and Australia, but you may prefer to do a PhD in English in a German university. In that case, you need to be familiar with German language, right? So some people want to go abroad for higher studies, and before they go abroad to those particular countries, they need to acquaint themselves with the culture of that country. And when I say culture, I mean a whole gamut of factors, a whole bunch of factors, like cuisine. What are the words that are used to refer to different delicacies and dishes and cuisine? Clock time. How is time perceived and understood in that culture? Is time perceived and understood and interpreted differently from what it is interpreted like in our country? Like our time is stretchable. We say something will start at 11 o'clock, but that thing starts at 12 o'clock. So our notion of time is different. Their notion of time is different. So we need to be familiar with how clock time is understood in that culture, what is acceptable in that culture, what is not acceptable in that culture, what questions can be asked in that culture, how people stand in queue in that culture, whether they stand in a straight line or whether they stand like we do when we board a bus or a train in our country. So queuing, clock time, cuisine, conversation, how do people in that culture converse? Like there are different turn-taking patterns. I've been to about 22, 23 countries for academic and professional purposes, and I've noted down 3 dominant patterns of turn-taking. How do people converse? Like in Japan, one person A will say something and finish whatever he or she wants to say, and B will not start immediately. B will take half a minute, sometimes a minute, and then start saying something in response to what A has already said. Now, why do they take a pause in Japanese culture? They take a pause in Japanese culture after A has said something. B takes a long pause because B wants to show to A that whatever A has said is so meaningful, so significant, so vital that B needs time to internalize it, to understand it, to comprehend it. So that pause, that silence between A's turn and B's turn is indicative of politeness. So that's one culture. A says something, stops, There is a pause and B starts. That's pattern number one. Pattern number two is the Western pattern. A finishes and B starts, right? There is no time lag between A's turn and B's turn. That's Western culture, American culture, and German culture, and so on and so forth. The third pattern is the Arab pattern. So A says something and A continues saying something and B interferes, interrupts. B doesn't let A finish whatever A wants to say. So this is the pattern of interruption, which is prevalent in Arab countries. And you can't really say that this is good and that is bad. No, there is no question of being good or being bad, being desirable or being undesirable, right? Because we all look from the lenses of our own culture. And our culture, our language, any language for that matter, including the language that we want to learn before going to a particular country, every language is loaded with culture, right? And culture operates at different levels. I said cuisine, clothing. There are words which refer to clothing. There are words which refer to cuisine or food items. There are words which refer to coaxing. For example, in our culture, we invite somebody and we go on coaxing. Oh, you haven't eaten anything. Why don't you eat? Why don't you have a second helping, a third helping, and a fourth helping? And in fact, the guest is full. The guest is finished. But then the host will continue coaxing, right? Requesting the guest to take something more. This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen in other countries, especially in the Western countries. So what I am saying is, uh, initially we pick up some words of the foreign language. We pick up the predominant grammatical patterns of that particular language, and then gradually we go to the inner layer. The outer layer is easy because we can see the food, we can see the clothing, we can see the festivals, we can see all those things. They are visible, and we learn those words. But there are assumptions, there are presuppositions and suppositions, and these suppositions and presuppositions and assumptions are inside layers which are not visible. And gradually, as we proceed from elementary level to intermediate level, and from intermediate level to advanced level, in the process of learning that foreign language, we realize that language is a complex phenomenon. It's not just a matter of dictionaries and grammar books. A language doesn't exist in a dictionary, does it? No, it doesn't. A language doesn't exist in a grammar book, does it? No, it doesn't. A language exists in real life situations and occasions, not in dictionaries and grammar books. And we realize this as we advance in our study of a foreign language. So we want to go and work abroad and we learn a foreign language of that country. We want to go and set up a business in that country and we learn foreign language. We want to go for higher studies and we want to learn the language of that country. We want to work for certain secret organizations like RAW, for example, RAW, Research and, what is that? Research and Analysis Wing, which is our secret agency, like ISI is that of Pakistan, and so on and so forth. So our CIA is from America. So you want to work for a secret agency, you pick up those languages. For example, our present foreign minister Shiv Shankar is a very fluent, very confident, and very natural speaker of Chinese, right? But unfortunately, even that is not working on the Chinese mind, because people say if you can speak the language of those people will accept you. Those people will consider you a member of their culture, their country. But that is not, unfortunately, that is not working in this case, because we're dealing with China, not any other country. So we want to go abroad for job purposes. We want to set a business outside our country. We want to go abroad for higher studies. We want to establish and consolidate business or political or cultural links. We want to learn foreign texts, novels, plays, one-act plays, poetry. We want to learn. We want to read those. We want to read that literature written in that particular language. you can always read those literary works in translated forms, but then it's like you want to drink elixir, but you are drinking buttermilk. Buttermilk is buttermilk, and nectar is nectar, elixir is elixir. So if you want to access the original texts, original literature written in that particular language, you need to you need to learn the language. So we want to go abroad for job purposes, for business purposes. We want to understand the culture of that country. We want to read literature written in that language. We want to understand different cultures. We want to migrate. We want to travel as tourists. We want to visit, for example, beaches, temples, forts, historical places, and so on and so forth. So we need vocabulary to understand those things. We want to become tourist guides. We want to become teachers of that particular foreign language, right? We want to interpret. We want to work as interpreters for the government or for the corporate world. We have many Japanese companies working in India, many Chinese companies, many European companies, Australian companies. So when I want to work for a Japanese company in Pune, it's a good idea for me to learn Japanese, right? Because when I speak in their language, they feel that the gap between them as employers and me as an employee is reduced. So we integrate into each other's culture. So we want to become interpreters or translators. We want to collect news from different sources in different countries. Like, for example, I work as a news gatherer, news collector for Times of India, and I'm based in Yemen or I'm based in Dubai. I must know Arabic. Only then can I collect authentic news items or news information and so on and so forth. So there are people who want to learn Japanese or Chinese or Korean or any other language for that matter because it's a separate intellectual exercise, only for the fun of that. They want to learn it for the sake of the language itself without any exterior or utilitarian or instrumental purpose. We want to become global citizens, and therefore we can learn languages. I know people who can speak 12 languages, and they find life so beautiful and so lovable and livable, and they go abroad and they come back without any problem. I remember something that happened some years ago. In 2009, I was invited as one of the key speakers at an international conference organized by Wuhan University of Science and Technology, the same notorious Wuhan. I was there, and one of my friends wanted to go to a washroom. He didn't know the Chinese word for washroom. We were outside. We were not at the venue of the conference, so we were just touring. And he wanted to go to a washroom, but the local people didn't know the word washroom and all that, the local Chinese. So, and it was an emergency nature's call. So he had to literally use different techniques, which would be considered indecent and impolite, in real life situations. But he was compelled to do that, and only then could the local Chinese understand what this man was looking for. Oh, and then the Chinese took him to a toilet, to a urinal. So we can learn a foreign language for a variety of purposes. Let me recapitulate in five minutes or so. We are intrinsically, internally driven, motivated, propelled to learn a language, or there is somebody outside who propels us, a friend, family member, etc. Or we have instrumental motivation. We want to go for higher studies. We want to set up a business there. We want to go as a tourist. We want to translate their books, novels and plays and so on and so forth in other languages. So we have an instrumental motivation. We have integrative motivation. We want to be one with that culture. We want to be integrated into that culture, and therefore we want to learn their language the way they learn and the way they speak. Right. Now, the third thing that I spoke about was equivalence. Equivalence is at the level of words. I gave you the example of the word wear, W-E-A-R, which has 5, 6 different words in Japanese, depending on those factors I mentioned. Or the equivalence can be equivalence of, for example, culture. Let's take, for example, Choli Daman Ka Saath. Now, Choli Daman is very culture specific. We find it only in our country, right? How do you translate this? Do you use some other expression which is an equivalent of Choli Daman Ka Saath? Do you use some other proverb or saying or quotation or an anecdote to translate this? How do you overcome this untranslatability problem? The problem of untranslatability. How do you overcome? Right? So sometimes people learn a foreign language because they want to explore their ancestral roots. Like, for example, some some Maharashtrian family went to America 100 years ago. So their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren were born there and they can't speak Marathi. Now, those children can come to India to explore their ancestral roots, through the language that was used centuries ago in their family. So what I'm saying is the motives could be different. Seeking a job, doing higher studies, doing research, setting up business, setting up a factory or industry, or visiting that country as a tourist, or translating their literature into our language, or becoming a global citizen, exploring our ancestral roots, and so on and so forth. So there are a whole lot of things which can be said about why is it good, why is it desirable, why is it necessary to learn a foreign language, right? So this is what I wanted to say. I think I have taken more time than I was allotted. I'm sorry if I have exceeded my time limit. So thank you so much, Professor Khairnar, for this great opportunity. And I'm glad I could say a few things about a very important topic, a very burning topic issue, because learning a foreign language opens so many avenues, so many doors to us, including diplomatic channels, diplomatic negotiations, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, Professor Khairnar, for this great opportunity that you've given me. And I'm glad I have done something, at least something, for my colleagues and friends from my Janmabhoomi, from my district and my Khandesh. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your informative and a very vibrant speech, sir. Actually, you are a very radiant personality, sir, in the field of academia, and I hope and I'm sure that your experience of abroad is really helping for enriching the Indian education, sir. Thank you so much, sir, once again on behalf of Department of English, Others College.
Thank you. Whatever I said was out of experience, you know.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Nothing,
sir.
I
You
didn't say
are.
anything from books because I haven't read any books on why people read, why people learn foreign languages.
Thank
It's
you.
all first-hand experience. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to start the resource person session. And I'm very happy to tell you that today, the first resource person, we have Dr. Mohini Gurau. I'm very happy again to introduce herself. She is Assistant Professor, Department of English, Sandip University, Nashik, Maharashtra. She is BOS Chairperson and PhD Guide from Sandip University, Nashik. She has more than 24 years experience language teaching and learning. She published her 45 research papers in reputed national and international journals. She delivered more than 50 talks. Also, I'm very happy to tell you that she is interested in poetry. Poetry is her fashion. Her poems have found space in anthology Dewdrops, published by Forum for Creative Writers. And today she is with her topic, Importance of English Language in Career Building. Ma'am, may I request you to deliver your talk or presentation on this occasion of this day. Hand over to you, ma'am. Dr.
Hello.
Mohini Gurov. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You are quite audible, ma'am. Carry on.
A very good morning to all the respected dignitaries on the webinar platform and the erudite audience who are present over here to listen to this talk. At the outset, I congratulate Dr. Khairnar and his team for taking up the initiatives to organize such webinar, which will be of help to our learners. I also extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Khairnar for inviting me to share my views. So without wasting much of the time, I would like to begin with my topic, that is importance of English in career building. COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to explore. Also, it has given us opportunity to find time. I would like to. So is it visible on that side?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
it is visible.
Yeah. And so let us take this opportunity to utilize this time to hone our skills, to learn something new, which will add to our profile and also will help us to get some jobs or get into some jobs, or maybe for pleasure, or maybe you would like to hone your skills. So maybe you would like to learn this language. So you will get opportunities to learn, read, write. I think somebody.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am, you check your mic, okay? If I mute all now, then you have to check your mic, okay? Carry on, ma'am. Carry on, ma'am.
Okay. Already Dr. Zeran Patil sir has explained us about why one should learn a language. Some more things, I won't be repeating the things that sir has told already. There are a lot of things like
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Start. Yeah.
As sir said that yes, we need to be empathetic, we need to empower ourselves by learning the language, and this language is also will open doors to employability. We need to adapt, get insights from other countries, or it will also open avenues for jobs. So all these things make us ponder that yes, we should learn a foreign language. Now today, if you see this, English is a common lingua franca across the globe. According to some estimates, almost 80% of English speakers in the world are non-native speakers. English will still remain the world's lingua franca, as people around the world will still find it the most convenient language to communicate with those whose mother tongue is different from theirs. Now, why learn foreign languages? We today also have got some experts who are going to talk about German language and other foreign languages. So I will talk about English language specifically over here. Why learn this particular language? Because it is also an activity which helps us to keep our brains active all the time. As already sir said that those who are interested in translation, learning literature and language, they can also learn this language. Apart from learning, it also gives us contentment, confidence, and it boosts our self-esteem. It opens door to learn new languages. If you know a second language, it also becomes easy to learn the other language that you would like to take up. There are a lot of opportunities in private, corporate sectors in India and abroad. Now, this particular language keeps you, English language keeps you connected, updated with the recent trends, what's happening in this particular language in the world, how people are taking up this language and going ahead into that particular field. It also helps us, as Sir said, that different cultures, traditions, rules and regulations like traffic rules or medication rules or health insurance rules, we come to know if we know the language of that particular country. Also, it gives us opportunity to explore different universities, students, especially the learners who would like to study abroad, or even opportunities in India, those who would like to know about the different universities in India and study in India. This particular English language will be of great help to them. Because if you are from Maharashtra and if you know Marathi, and if you would like to go to South, there you'll find a different language spoken over there. So English could be a common language to communicate over there. Or even if wherever in India you would like to go, we have a multilingual background. So naturally, if you know English, it will be very easy for you to communicate with all. Let me talk about the different competitive exams. There are many, but few I have just listed over here, like civil services exams. Why am I talking about these exams? Because English is an integral part of these different competitive exams. So it becomes more important that you learn this particular language if you would like to serve our motherland and mother country. Indian Economic Service Examination, Indian Statistical Service Examination, then you have CDSE, National Defense Academy and Naval Academy Examination, Combined Medical Services Examination, Engineering Services Examination, staff selection for different categories. There are also bank exams, private banks, government banks. There are railway exams, geologists exams conducted for geologists. There are some other fields also, like NetSet for teaching faculty. There are a lot of opportunities even for nurses here in India and abroad, but they need to give some exams. So naturally, English is a part of this, all these examinations. Hospitality, librarian, veteran, all these have some sort of, uh, somewhere they have to deal with this English paper. I'm just giving you a tentative format of an English question paper. There can be changes, so look for the updates on recent updates. Your English skills will be checked on your comprehending skills, whether you have comprehended a particular passage, whether you have understood the words that are used in that particular passage. Like as sir said, words mean different in different contexts. So whether you have understood those, the sentences, jumbled sentences, you have to restructure them properly in the correct grammatical way. Error spotting, where you need to find out the errors in a particular sentence and find out the errors and reframe the sentence or put it in a proper order. Grammar questions will be asked on tenses, voice, indirect speech, and many more grammar questions will be asked over there. Synonyms, antonyms, homonyms, where children get confused over these words. Homonyms, where the spellings are same, but the meanings are different, like fair, F-A-I-R, another word which means this is not fair. This is the girl was is very fair, and there is a fair in Nasik town. So like that, these words mean different. There are idioms, phrases, and proverbs to be understood. Like sir said, open the door is open. Paraphrasing, which is very important, putting up the things into short and paraphrasing them. Report writing, letter writing. I will tell you these also are there in different other exams also. All the other 4 skills are tested. Okay. Now let me tell you, if suppose if you have not done your graduation also, if you have just completed your 12th or 10th, you still can get job opportunities where if your basic English is clear. Like for example, airports, groundwork can be given, like the checking of the board passes or checking the luggage, the weight of the luggages and all other things like welcoming. All other work can be given over there on the groundwork. I'm not talking about pilots and those engineering sectors. Uber Eats suppliers, even in India it works and abroad also. A student studying over there can take up this. And let me tell you, there is no, there they work, they take up any kind of work, not like Indians over here. Indians are a little choosy, like they wait and decide whether I should take up this particular job or not. But in foreign countries, they are ready to take up Uber Eats work also, and it gives them a good amount, which helps them economically also. Nowadays, like parcel points, e-commerce, in COVID-19, I think e-commerce has boomed up for commerce students and even for arts. If you know basic English, you definitely can go for e-commerce, then gardening, blogging, vlogging, technician. There are a lot many. See, I have jotted down so many. A chef, being a, you can run a dhaba, appoint people. Instead of just waiting for the jobs or job opportunities, why not you create a job opportunity for others? Okay, like for other things like gym, event management, not necessarily you need to be MBA only. If you have very good skills of handling the situation, and if you're very good in English, I think this can help you out. Export, import. Let me tell you now, agriculture is booming so much. If you have knowledge about farming, your food grains or whatever fruits can be exported in foreign countries where they are not grown. So this is a very really plus point for the people coming up from villages, those who have got farms. Please look into it. If you are growing the grains and having ISO mark, you have the opportunity, but you should know English, basic English, so that it will help you to go to other country and export your goods. Even if you're a carpenter, and you want to apply abroad, you know to need to know basic English, even plumber, painter, and lot many other opportunities. Now, booming sectors, those who are very high qualified, like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. All engineering fields have got better opportunities abroad and even in India. Okay, now lot many opportunities are going to come in India also. There are already there. You need to explore. A lot of project management projects can be taken up. You can be the team leader, but you need to know English for this. Why am I putting up these all these sectors over here, or the booming sectors? Because you need to know English. Healthcare providers, you can see in COVID-19 how this has become a very important factor. Nurses, doctors, and even hospitals and all, they are working towards this pharmaceutical sectors, biomedical sciences, life sciences, and biotechnology. Agriculture, even a nut grower, grape grower, has a lot of importance because this can be processed, can be sent out. Teaching, it is a ever booming, you could say, a sector. Education. First, see, you cannot think that, okay, I'm going to go abroad and let me just apply. First, you have to start your preparation first. First you plan where what we want to do in your life. Not that you need to go abroad only. Even staying in India, you can do a lot of things. But those who want to go abroad, first they should have a passport ready with them before they apply for universities. Different universities list are there on the website, where you can select first 10 universities, and then they'll be sending you the letter, like interview appointment letter. So all these documents should be ready. If you want to check whether you are eligible for Canada and like places, you have a free access to Express Entry website, where you can upload your details, and you can check your eligibility, whether you are eligible or not to go, whether you can go to Canada. And to go to Canada, which exam you'll have to give, which is a must exam, that is IELTS. Okay, IELTS, which tests your English. See, this is a little blur, but if you would like to go to Australian skilled occupation list, if you would like to do a job over there, even after 12th or graduation from any field, let me tell you, here it's given a nut grower or a fruit grower. But see what's given over here. You need requirement is you need to be having competent English. So you just cannot write over there, I'm competent in English. You need a certificate to show them that yes, you have given this particular test. And so these green mark shows that these so many opportunities are there in what, in these fields, and the red mark shows that now they are not accepting these applications for these jobs. And if you click on this, you'll come to know which date they have stopped accepting the application, and later on again they may open up this. So the green mark shows these many jobs are available. So if you go on any SOL or a skilled occupation list of any country, you'll get this kind of a scenario. Also, if it is competent English, your IELTS, you should have at least 7 in each band. What is each band? All 4 skills. Okay, that is listening, speaking, writing, and reading. All you should have each at least 7. That is competent English. And if they ask you proficiency in English, you should have 7 and above. That is 8 in each band. So this is a very good thing too. So you have to start researching before you go abroad, not the same year, maybe 2 years prior to it. Okay. So next, now what is permanent resident? Even if you check your PR, you'll come to know from this also whether you are eligible or not from those entries of a particular country. Now learn and earn. This is a one very good option when you go to foreign countries. You can take up a small job over there. So the other slide that I showed you already, here it will show you that yes, what kind of a job do you want to do in foreign country, and first search, accordingly plan, and then practice. But you need to learn English to go abroad. If you have to have this at least lower, you could say competent English, that grade, at least you should be having that band to go abroad. Okay, learn and earn. It helps in getting a real time idea of the industry and helps you in becoming more independent. Few countries where you can earn while learn are USA, UK, Australia, France, Germany, Spain, and Canada. More may be added. Please check the updates. Study abroad. For studying abroad, you need to give at least one of these exams. Depends on which country you're going to go or you're going to select, like TOEFL, IELTS, PTE, SAT, ACT, GRE. So engineering students can opt for these, or even others, those who would like to go over there, they can opt for this. Exams like IELTS is for preferred exam for getting admission to universities in UK, Australia, New Zealand, and score is valid only for 2 years. So if you want to go after 2 years, don't give the test now. Give the test the year when you want to go. So you have one more year in your hand. Okay, don't give the test immediately that particular, 2 years before, because then it will become invalid. Are you getting? See, these exams are there again, once again, TOEFL, IELTS, PTE, SAT, ACT, GRE. If you want to go 2 years after, see that you give the after 2 years this particular exam. TOEFL also is valid only for 2 years. PTE also is valid for 2 years. Now, IELTS for Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and UK. Nowadays, the US also is accepting IELTS. So this is a good thing. But right now, because of COVID-19, there are some restrictions which Trump has come up with. So look into those factors also before applying for those things. TOEFL is also one of the most popular English proficiency exam, and America and Canadian universities and schools abroad. And those who want to study abroad can choose multiple dates all over the around the year. These dates are available, and like you can select a date, a center. Sitting at home also you can give this particular exam. So online exams are going on. Like there are a lot of courses also. There are a lot of centers, like even Altis Symbiosis running some courses, Udemy. Then you have some more like Coursera, then Swayam, Neptil. All these are providing some courses. So go through them. PTE is Pearson Test of English. Aspirants looking to pursue higher education in Australia, New Zealand, USA, UK, Canada, other countries, they require to appear for the Pearson. Germany has little different rules and norms, which our German expertise will highlight upon, because their English is not, they don't teach much in English. If you know German, it is a plus point. So I would not suggest about German. There are some agencies and institutes, I would say, which help out if you are not able to go through the website and you're facing some problems and you're unable to get through. There are some institutes, they had a webinar, the study abroad recently. Royal
Hello.
UK Education had a webinar recently, which is over. But there are a lot of help is given by them to fill up the form, how to, what kind of documents are needed, what is the duration of the test, and even if you don't score the particular band in a particular test, you can reappear by paying the amount of the fees. So these are the, you could say, the agencies or institutes, but be careful. There are a lot of fake institutes also. So don't pay money just by reading these names of the institutes. Go to the website, check their authenticity, and then only apply for such institutes, I would say. So there are a lot of opportunities if you give these tests like IELTS, TOEFL, and all those which I have told you. But if you want to stay back in India, you can still have a lot of opportunities here also. Instead of waiting for a job, you can start your own business. You can start your own factory, as Dr. Zaran Patil sir said. Nowadays, agriculture farming, contract farming is booming. Like you can process, you can export, you can do the packing work, you can provide pulp to the other countries by being a vendor. You can provide garlic paste, and lot many things can be done. Only thing is you need to explore. The problem with our Indian students or the learners, I would not say that only you need to take up the highest degree like PhD. Also, even if you are 12th pass, you can do a lot of things, but you need to know English. That is the basic requirement. Because if you know English, you can communicate with the other people in the world. You will know what kind of rules and regulations are there. Everywhere Marathi won't be available, the documents won't be available in Marathi. So this is that you have to gear up and update yourself and upgrade by knowing this particular language, if, even if you want to stay back in India. And I would suggest that don't wait for jobs, start your own startups. Maybe you can begin with small investment, and that will lead to something very great later on. Because nowadays in this COVID-19, there's a huge, you could say a big question that is in front of students of the fourth year, that what is going to happen to my future. And even we as educators, I think we also need to think about even the reframing syllabus. Nowadays it is not that only you have a degree and you'll get a job. You need to also learn soft skills. You need to also acquire other skills while you're learning languages, because this will help you to also have the interpersonal skills, understand the people how they behave, understand to adjust with the surrounding, adapt, adopt, and adapt. Okay, all these three things you can do at the same time. But if you know English language, this will be of real help. Even if you are going to work with Uber Eats, you need to know this language, because the forms or even the requirements sometimes on the net language, it is an internet language, which is in English. So this will be of great help to all of them to learn, grow, and maybe further they can help out their colleagues. They can help out their fellow, you could say their friends. Because in COVID-19, I can understand there's a lot of depression which is mounting. I can especially see where the students are really questioning that, yes, whether exams will be there, not there, how will I go ahead? And if exams won't be there, then what about my marks? How will be they calculated? So don't worry, you are in safe hands. Government will take up some decisions. And if you're going to be in India, learn English. As I told you, there are so many courses which are coming up. And nowadays, I think it is very easy to learn courses sitting at home, because they are online. So it will be of great help to even the students from villages. And there can be community centers, like Dr. Karnar has already through this webinar has given a word out that you can learn English. Even Karnar sir, I would like to just like suggest something, that you can have a, you have lovely, I have visited your college, you have a lot of computer facility and all. So students can come over there and learn over there by maintaining social distancing and other things. So, and I've seen Dr. Kernar being very active and helping out his students with different activities. So this will really help them. Even they can sit in those your colleges, and even if they don't have the data and they don't have the money to buy the internet, the data, they can come to the colleges and they can enroll over there, and through library support, they can see all these sites and they can enroll. If they don't have, and see, you can uh, take up whatever course you want, but first I would say, whichever country you want to select, see the climatic conditions over there first, because you may have heard about that particular country. Oh, that country is very beautiful, but according to your health conditions and according to your budget, according to, like, Germany offers, and many more countries will offer you scholarships, they'll offer you free education. But what about the accommodation part, which is very costly and goes around to something 20 lakhs, 40 lakhs and all? No matter, you'll be able to repay that because you'll be earning over there. Some countries allow you to work for 20 hours a week, so you can work over there, whatever job you can take up over there. You will get jobs in the campus also, like assistant project and all those things. So you have to think first. I think you should go through SWOT analysis, which will make you understand your strengths, weaknesses, and find out the opportunities and face the challenges. So I think whatever you wish to do, I think English will be of great help, even if you want to stay back in India or go abroad. So you can take up, there are plethora of opportunities, I would say, but only you need to explore. Especially village students or the small town students feel that, oh, if I cannot take up a very, you can say, the highest degree, I won't sustain in this particular field. I can understand there is a cutthroat competition, but still I have seen students coming up with small investment, and now they are doing very good in this particular field. So realize your potential, students. Don't give up, and you can do wonders. So I would not further elaborate, and would like to recapitulate by saying that, yes, fly high, sky is the limit. Believe in yourselves, as nothing is impossible. So best wishes to all of you, the learners. And I think we as educators can come forward and help our students there are a lot of workshops going on like Udyog Vardhani and Udyog Shala. And we have in Nasik also, there are centers at Vidya Mandir which help out the students, even the girls. You know, the government is providing with a lot of loan facilities even for girls with 35 and 40% subsidy on it. So girls, also should come forward and take up this. But the basic requirement would be learn English first, so that you know the names of the technical things, you know the names of the machines, you know the names and how to fill up the forms, and whom to approach, which bank to approach, how to repay, how to contact the person who is on the other side. Maybe you would like to export your goods with Germany, then learn German. If you want to go to France, then learn French. So I've given you a number of sites. I don't mind if you share this PPT with the learners, because there are a lot of sites which I've given you where you can go and find out your eligibility, whether you are applicable for it, and what you can do to improve. At present, maybe you're not having that, you could say you're not applicable for it or you're not eligible for it. Don't give up. For those days or for that number of period, you can hone your skills, soft skills, learning English language, and learning different skills, and then you can apply for these language or for these visa and other things over there. So all the best to all the learners, and with this I would like to conclude my talk. Thank you so much, Dr. Kernar sir, for inviting me.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your informative talk. If you want to become a global citizen, as Patil sir says, you must know the foreign language, and English also a foreign language. So thank you for very important talk. Now may I request Miss Kirti Kare for the topic importance of foreign languages and communication in today's world, German. She is from Elfo Grech Language Institute for German Language, and she is a lady who is shining her career very successfully in German language. So may I request Kirti Kare, ma'am, to deliver your talk or presentation for 20 minutes. Kirti ma'am, hand over to you, please.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Respected principal, esteemed guests, and my dear fellow information seekers, a very good morning to all of you. Firstly, I would like to thank Principal Dr. Ashok Khainar for organizing this webinar and giving fellow colleagues and me a podium to express ourselves and to share our knowledge that can help future aspirants in various fields, and especially in the field of languages. Just a short introduction about myself. My name is Mrs. Kirti Kale. I am from Pune. I used to be an English language trainer, but since the last 10 years, I am now a German language trainer. I have taught for 5 years at the Kendriya Vidyalaya Air Force School as well. And I have, since the last 7 years, my own German language institute called Erfolgreich Language Institute in Pune. And we are a small team, but we have taught over 1,000 students in the last 10 years. Also, I have done German, the Goethe Institute Pune, which is the recognized, worldwide recognized for German language, especially for the certification. And I have also done 2 of my courses, my last 2 courses, in Germany at Goethe Institute Göttingen. And yes, also I do hold a diploma in teaching German as a foreign language. So let's start. Firstly, when we travel or when we want to study abroad, we always think of countries like the United States of America, we think of the United Kingdom, think of Canada, Australia, nothing more. Why? Why don't we think about Japan? Why don't we think about Finland? Why don't we think about Germany? Why don't we think about Mexico? These countries are also in the forefront of technology and innovations, but we still avoid going to these countries or even think about them. There is the one factor that deters us from going into these countries, and that is obviously the communication part, language. We do not approach the non-English speaking countries usually because we are afraid that we may not be able to survive there, or we may not be able to communicate in the language that is required. The main misconception, the notion people have is that learning a foreign language is difficult or close to impossible. So I would just like to share a small presentation as well. A lot of points have been already covered by previous guests. I will not go again into detail with those, but I will still like to share some more information about the German language. So, hello, hola, konnichiwa, privet, bonjour, buongiorno, salam. Yes, so the world is full of different cultures, people, music, food, and most importantly, languages. So imagine you're yourself in Japan, and like Professor Patle had already said, that somebody in Wuhan wanted to go to the washroom, but they did not know how to ask that. If you are in Japan, which is close to zero English speaking country, especially in the remote areas, and you wish to look for a restaurant or a doctor, or there is an emergency that you're looking for, but you do not know how to ask that question, or even, for example, you try English, because we assume everybody speaks English outside India. We use our hand gestures, we use a lot of things, and sometimes we also use a translator. But that is very frustrating and it takes too much time. So we avoid going to such countries. Also, when we think about studying abroad, in non-English speaking countries, we think, oh, I don't speak the language there. Why should I go there? I have to learn a new language? No, that's too much work. I don't wish to go there. Then, if you are working in a foreign company, a multinational company, you have important clients or delegates from a non-English speaking country, for example, Japan, Mexico, Germany, Finland, Taiwan, it does become awkward because you're sitting with your client and there is not much communication going on. Things are not clear sometimes. We are not aware of their cultural etiquette, their mannerism. That is why we avoid conversation, and there's always this tension among the clients and you. But yes, if you do speak their language, even a little bit, they are definitely impressed. You are more comfortable yourself to speak with them, to express, and easier to be understood, and you understand them as well. And they realize that you are taking an extra effort to learn their language, and you are aware of their work ethics and culture. And therefore, they are happier to work and collaborate and communicate. So when you learn a foreign language, learning to speak and read and write, you're learning to listen to a person, to converse, to reply. You get to know the people, the culture, and the land. You learn the mannerism, you learn the work ethics, you learn the code of conduct. Should one do, what should one not do at all? You learn to live and think like a native in that language. For example, there are certain countries where you do not do certain things at all. For example, no private questions to a German, Scandinavian, or Japanese. These are what we call in